Mr. Mayor, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Obviously, for weeks now, the news cycle has been filled with the devastation that happened just to the east of us from Helene. You say you have not been there, but Knox County did have a part, and we'll share that with me, how we are helping them, our neighbors.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't go up and tour the devastation in Upper East Tennessee, just because I really didn't want to get in the way of what was going on with the recovery efforts. I have talked to Mayor Mathis from Knox County, Mayor Woodby from Carter County, as well as the other mayors up in that area. And it's a horrible situation. Initially, one of the things that we did was the sheriff had sent the helicopter up to Unicoi to pull folks off of the roof there. That was a multi-state effort. I just recently found out that there were helicopters, I believe, from the Virginia State troopers that were also helping, but as Tennessee Highway Patrol, National Guard, and our own sheriff's office, then they turned around when Newport was flooded. They sent the helicopters back to Newport and pulled about 24 people off of rooftops there and rescued them. We also helped with just some initial recovery. We had a road crew up helping with emergency road repairs in Knox County, as well as some logistical support and that sort of thing with their emergency management people. And our health department has also had the mobile women's clinic in Knox County, and I believe they were helping with inoculations for tetanus and hepatitis. It's one of those things you don't think about stuff like that, but that water had some very bad things in it. So if you were in the water, it definitely needed to get those shots. And overall, just talking with the other mayors, seeing if there's anything we could do. Along with the other mayors in this area, we organized trying to get as much water as we could to Knox County while their water purification plant was down. So one of the most amazing things in situations like this is, as terrible and tragic as the situation is the outpouring that you see from our community, and definitely saw it again when all of this happened. And I always say that it's when things are darkest that the volunteer spirit shines the brightest, and that was once again true in this case.
Will efforts continue? Will
Yeah, absolutely.
Knox County continue?
Yes, we'll do everything that we can. Now it's kind of in the hands of the state as well. It's to some extent FEMA. Now FEMA doesn't do, like a lot of folks think FEMA actually does the recovery. Not so much. Afterwards you submit, basically they were reimbursed for some of the expenses that are incurred. So it'll be a lot of state and local efforts going forward from here, as well as the community again. Absolutely.
Have there been lessons learned from their experience that may translate to if something catastrophic were to happen in Knox County?
We always look at things afterwards and try to improve as much as we can. One thing to remember is, these other counties really didn't have the resources that a place like Knox County does. I mean, we have a great emergency management agency, all the folks that in the different areas, and we can just bring more resources to bear than maybe some of the smaller counties can. This was a difficult situation because it was just unprecedented. You don't think of water, that much water coming over the dams, and I was told at the hospital in Unicoi County that the water is rising a foot a second, or a foot a minute. I'm sorry, excuse me. So literally the only thing I could do is get people up to the roof and call for help. I mean, you can't drive through that, obviously. So, we'll always look at things and think about stuff going forward, but we're fortunate to have the resources that we can really bring some resources to bear in situations like that.
There's been a lot of misinformation related to the disaster and thereafter. We addressed this with FEMA and the TBI last week in a roundtable discussion. One instance, people claiming that bodies were being pushed into debris, and they debunked that. That was not in the case, but there are a number of others. What do you believe is the impact of misinformation and when it comes to natural disasters?
It's a distraction is the biggest thing. For the official channels, it's a distraction for us because you have people calling the office, and this happened, I know, at the governor's office as well. And then you have to answer those phone calls and can't concentrate on the really important thing. So that's the biggest issue, I think, is just the distraction and then kind of the resources that get diverted away from that. And then when you have people saying things like, so-and-so is confiscating supplies, and that was, it got to the point where I saw people saying that whatever, like the Red Cross or, these people, it's like, well, no, that's not the case. I certainly haven't seen anything like that. Because my fear was that if people actually start seeing this and go, oh my gosh, this is happening, they might quit helping, which is the last thing that we needed. So I would just tell everyone, that wonderful thing about our country is you have free speech, but I also think that we have to be smart consumers of that free speech and to realize that anyone can say anything on social media. So you really need to, first of all, use your own discretion, your own discernment, and determine, hey, does that sound right? And then second of all, make sure that it's verified by people that you trust and people that know what they're talking about. And we see this all the time now where someone puts a Facebook post out. Sometimes it's a joke. Sometimes you don't even know where it come from. And then all of a sudden it's all over the place and everyone is quoting this one Facebook story, which wasn't even true. And we saw that a little bit during this episode as well.
You felt strongly enough to go on to X and address misinformation. You got a lot of praise from both sides of the aisle, if you will, for taking that step and saying, hey, let's be careful here. What was your response to that?
Again, for me, it was trying to do the right thing as far as making sure that everyone really understood the situation and any problems that, again, when people start saying, oh my gosh, this is happening and I need to call the mayor, I need to call the governor, we're working on this issue and you're taking bandwidth away, to talk about something that really, again, I didn't see it happening, okay? And I am boots on the ground. So I just felt that was something that we did need to talk about. I mean, we can criticize policy. I'm not a big fan of FEMA myself. I'll be the first person to say that. At the same time, you do have to tell the truth. And too often what happens is, you have maybe a seed or a germ of something, then all of a sudden it blows up and ends up causing more harm than it does good.
And 2 days later, you did, and this was in response to someone who had responded to you, you did say, actually all I said was, to my knowledge, FEMA, et cetera,
right,
weren't confiscating supplies in
right,
East Tennessee. As far as I know, FEMA is not doing much here. Our neighbors, churches, nonprofits, and state and local governments are the ones who have stepped up. What sources were you relying on when it comes to, you did not know, well, to be exact, exact term, as far as I know, FEMA is not doing much here.
The people on the ground, and then FEMA as well. What they're doing is they're going to do assessments, but they're not coming in, setting up roadblocks and doing all those sort of things. That's going to be the local folks that are doing that.
Some people say this is inconsistent for you to have said, FEMA is not taking these supplies, but then turn around.
Yeah, that's the point is, they're not even here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, people are saying FEMA's doing all these things. Like, to my knowledge, they're not even really here. So there's actually people that were saying that they're not doing anything, but they're here doing things. That's the actual inconsistency. For me, it was just saying, look, guys, it's actually the state and local people that are on the ground here. To my knowledge, they have some teams here, but they're not out doing the actual direct recovery. That's the state and local folks.
Let's move now to the election. Historically, Tennessee consistently sees the lowest or among the lowest states when it comes to voter turnout. Why do you see that's the case?
I don't know, actually. I don't know if it's because the Republican Party with the supermajority is very strong here, and folks just figure, they're one way or the other. That's going to remain the case. I don't know. I wish I did. It's really easy to vote here. We have a 2-week early voting period with precincts all over the county in Knox County. I wish people would take better advantage of it. But generally we have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, voter turnout in the country.
Voter integrity is a concern among citizens. Are you confident in the safety and security of Knox County?
Yes. Tennessee is #1 in election integrity across the state. Our Secretary of State does a great job. Here locally, the Election Commission does a great job. When I won in 2018, I was the outside of the establishment candidate, and I won by 23 votes. And if there were some shenanigans going on, there's no way that that would have happened. They wouldn't have allowed me to win. I got to see the process up close. We had provisional ballots, ballots that are questionable. It might be someone that they think has a felony but might not, so they're still eligible to vote, or they might actually have a felony, so they're not eligible to vote. So they had to look at some questionable ballots. I got to see that process and how they did it, very transparent. So again, I don't think I'd be sitting in the mayor's office having won by 23 votes in the position that I was in 2018 if there wasn't a lot of integrity in the process here in Knox County and across the state of Tennessee.
You're a very vocal supporter of former President Donald Trump, of course, who is running to become president again, appearing with him recently at a fundraiser and across the country. He uses disparaging comments toward his opponent and others. He has made a number of false claims that have been proven false. That said, is that rhetoric and that behavior acceptable to
Well,
you?
I think we can look at the other side too. And the media on the left, they still talk about Russiagate, which was a farce. It was a hoax. They never talked about the Hunter Biden laptop before the 2020 election, which proved to be true. I would say that what Donald Trump does is actually minor compared to what a lot of the left-wing media does. And I think why people gravitate to Trump is, despite his warts and flaws, he's a real human being, and his opponent's not. I mean, they're just a made-for-TV product. So you're going to get that with Donald Trump, but you know what you're going to get. And I think we know what we're going to get with Vice President Harris, and I would much rather get what I get with Donald Trump, and I'll take the good with the bad with him.
We are living in very divisive times.
Right.
I mean, very much 50-50, if
Right.
you will. How do we overcome divisiveness in this country?
That's a great question, and if I knew, I would do that. Unfortunately, we've just drifted so far apart, and so much of it I do think is politics, though. I'm a small government person, and I think a lot of the issue is that government has so much power now over everyone's lives. So these decisions that years ago were made at the family level or more at the community level, at the local level, now they become big national issues. And frankly, that's just the way politics works. You have your people and you rile them up as much as you possibly can, and that's how you win elections. And that's been the way it's always been. So I wish that there was an answer we could just say, if we were to flip this switch and do that it would solve everything. It's not going to. And a lot of folks point at President Trump and blame him for it. It's been going on for a long time. Certainly predates him coming to office.
So you don't feel like it's ramped up?
Oh, it has
years?
ramped up, but it's not just him. When you literally have people calling him Hitler, and 28% of Democrats, according to a recent poll, said the country would be better off if the assassination attempt against President Trump had been successful. So it's on, it's people often point to the right and say it's what Trump says, but I would argue that it's on the left is actually much worse than what's happened on the right.
One of the greatest statesmen who is from Tennessee, Howard Baker, would always say, the other guy may be right. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Would
that's
the other
true.
guy be right?
Yeah, I think that we should always talk and discuss things. In the end, with me, I have certain principles that I believe are right, and you're not going to talk me out of those unless you can present some very strong evidence showing me that I'm wrong. And I think that's how we should all operate. On the other hand, you have a lot of politicians that whichever way the wind blows, that's the way they're going to go. So you can't have that either. I think that we do need to have more discussions and more civil discourse. At the same time, I think we also need to have more principled people in politics, and that's part of the reason. I think, at least from on the public side, that they get so upset about things is because you have folks that campaign on one thing and they get in office and do something else, and obviously that's going to lead to a lot of discord with everyone.
Any final words you want to share to, especially since we are just now days away from the election?
Having the ability to choose your elected officials is very important, and it's unique to basically Western societies and Western democracies. And it's something that we should take advantage of, all of us. So yeah, I would get out there and vote. I can't tell you who to vote for, but at least make your voice known, and don't take it for granted.
Mayor, thank you.
Thanks.